Hello everybody and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about a little bit of news of what's going on with Gw2. Yesterday was Tuesday and that isn't patch day Tuesday, but it is the Tuesday where ArenaNet usually reveals something more about what's happening with the next patch. And indeed they have given us a trailer depicting the fall of Lion's Arch, which is pretty cool. You should be able to see it going on in the background, even though it's quite a long trailer. Really, they don't actually give you that much new footage about the patch. Most of the trailer starts off with just all these sweeping shots of Lion's Arch as we currently know it, and then at the end you really get to the good stuff, which is a bit of a shame, but really, the trailer's had a big impact on people. I'm seeing a lot of guys saying, whoa, the new patch actually looks like it's going to be really good. Oh, I told my friends about it and they're coming back to the game, so that's nice to hear. Aside from the trailer, ArenaNet really didn't release that much information. They have moved away from what they used to do, where they'd give you like a full patch summary, and then next week it would come out. Now they seem to just be doing teaser trailers. I do wonder why they've moved away from this. I wonder whether they felt that giving too much information too early was prohibiting the amount of last minute changes they could make to the patch before it goes out, because they didn't want to like conflict with what they'd originally said. Or maybe they're doing it this way now because they figure, hey, if we release all the information up front on Tuesday and some guy reads it and decides, hey, I didn't like the look of it, then they're not going to come in. But if all they do is release a trailer, then people are more likely to just come in based off of that alone. It's interesting to me. Anyway, as I say, the trailer's going on in the background. What little information ArenaNet did release along with it reads as such. On the main website, they had written, "The end begins. Log in on the 18th of February," that's next Tuesday for those of you who aren't keeping up, "to partake in the penultimate release of this story arc, Escape from Lion's Arch." I love that word, penultimate. So yeah, it is the second to last release in this Living World arc. I believe after these two are over, which are supposed to make a big splash, we can have a little bit of a break and then go on to Season 2. But then they also said in the description on YouTube of the video something slightly different that really doesn't give us that much more information, but it says, "Escape from Lion's Arch begins in Guild Wars 2 on February 18th. This ominous trailer offers a glimpse at the historic events that take place in the new release. The living world of Tyria will never be the same." The world of Tyria will never be the same. Very interesting. We're going to have a bit of a discussion in this video about what this trailer is actually going on. So, what do we see? Okay. In the last patch, for those of you who didn't do the story stuff, we had this big instance where we detected a whole bunch of stuff with Marjorie Delacroix, Lady Casimir, and Emissary Vorp, who was holo-conferencing with us. We looked at all of Scarlet's stuff, assessed the entire story so far, and together we all realised she was building an army for one final attack in Lion's Arch. In Lion's Arch last patch, we saw that there was one of these mysterious thumper probes that turned a different colour. Whatever Scarlet's been looking for underground, she seems to have found under Lion's Arch. And so there's going to be this big attack here. They set that up last patch. Now we have this trailer, which quite clearly shows at the start, yay, look, Lion's Arch is all lovely and peaceful as it currently is in game. And then everything's on fire. The Molten Alliance are there. The Toxic Alliance there. The Aether Blades are there in their airships above the sky. And everything seems to have gone to pot. But functionally, what does this mean for the game? There's really not that much else you can pick out in the trailer, I will say. The music was a nice choice. What they did was chose a track from the first game. I saw some people were saying, oh, this is pre-Searing music. Pre-Searing being the very first place you very first began in Guild Wars 1. That's not actually true. It's not pre-Searing music, which is Ascalon music, basically. It's like the 9th track on the soundtrack, maybe 7th track, called The Sands of Kryta. And indeed, it's one of those tracks that was always playing while you were in Kryta. Guild Wars 2, one of the most common things you do is sit about in Lion's Arch. That was true for Guild Wars 1 as well, and you'd be hearing the track you hear on this trailer. So while all of this destruction's going on, it's that same peaceful track you heard 1,000 times before if you've been playing this franchise for a long time, right there in LA, and it even plays in Guild Wars 2 in LA every now and then as well. Yeah, it's called The Sands of Kryta. I'll actually be using it at the start of this video. It was a really weird moment for me as well, seeing this trailer with that music, because it reminds me of like the lore videos I did, where I basically just cut together footage like this, and then I picked some of the Guild Wars 1 music as well. It was really kind of this weird moment. But yeah, so they picked nice music, and there are a few things that you can point out. There's a thread, I'll throw out some images on the screen right now. There was a thread on Reddit where someone pointed out, oh, hey, look, this shot is of this area of Lion's Arch. So here, we can do these comparison shots. And I'll just, like, copy those wholesale and flick between them for you guys on the footage. And you can actually see, you can see some pretty interesting parallels. Oh, hey, this is what the trading post looks like. And now here's what it looks like. And what's quite interesting is you can see that the characters that are running around with their arms in the air and, you know, being massacred in the trailer, these are the exact same NPCs and characters you can see out in Lion's Arch. So, like, you might have a favourite NPC, like that Asura that was going to make a bad salad joke or whatever just near the trading post, and you can see how perhaps this person ends up dying in Guild Wars 2. That's actually a really cool thought to me. You know, pretty grim as well, but you think there's like a lot of young characters around there. There's like those kids playing around the bank. What's going to happen to them? It was really weird seeing these before and afters and actually recognizing, wow, in this instance, all the same characters are just going to be carried across, and like the story of many of these, you know, random NPCs might be coming to an end now. That was pretty cool. I also wasn't that enticed or excited by the trailer, honestly. Like, I saw it and I appreciated it on sort of a superficial level, but you know, something inside me didn't really twig that got me super excited until, again, I looked at this Reddit post, and one of them is of the way that Lion's Arch looks when viewed from Gw2 Hills. If you guys remember, if you're out to the north and you look towards Lion's Arch, it's actually this sort of big mess of wood and ships and things all jumbled up together, and you can see the entrance to Lion's Arch for quite a long way away. I remember before launch when they did one of their convention demos that allowed people to go to Gw2 and allowed people to get elite skills. I remember one very specific video I was watching where someone was playing a thief who was out in one of these like fields fighting oak hearts or something. You know, back then it was like, oh, you can steal the branch from the oak heart and attack it. You know, we were looking at this kind of stuff. And I remember so clearly watching that video, and then he sort of rounded this corner and you saw the grand sort of entrance to Lion's Arch. And of course it was locked off and no one was allowed to go there. We had a trailer online, no one could go in, but it was like this really mysterious thing. It was like, wow, look how big that looks. I really want to go in there. And now we have this trailer. You know, you fast forward a year, we've got this trailer, and it is literally just that same shot, except the whole thing's on fire and dilapidated and all the wood's falling down and it just looks utterly ruined. Like, that really twigged something with me. I was like, oh my god, this is going to be really cool. There was another really kind of cool parallel that immediately struck my mind back to pre-launch, and that was the idea of the airships in the sky. Again, this is another thing. If you have a look at the footage in the background right now, in one of the earliest trailers they ever did, I believe it was the trailer where we got to fight Gw2 during one of the convention demos, they like had this trailer, and it was sort of like a two trailers in one kind of thing. It was like, oh yeah, we got all this trailer stuff going on, and then it ends with like a black screen or a flash to white, and then there's a black screen, and then like another half begins. It's this really distinct trailer, I remember. But where it ends halfway on this old trailer before launch, they had a shot of Lion's Arch, and in the sky above Lion's Arch was like a whole fleet of airships, like tons and tons of airships flying in the sky above Lion's Arch. This was something we never saw actually happen in-game. Maybe it was an early concept for a personal story mission they maybe had, where they were like, oh yeah, we'll have this moment in the personal story where all these airships form above Lion's Arch and there's push forward. You know, maybe they didn't have an idea of Trinity at the time. Maybe they just did it to be cinematic. Maybe the original designs of Lion's Arch were going to have the sky filled with all these airships and things, and it was going to be very busy throughout, but they realized it dragged on people's FPS. But for whatever reason, we never saw this come out in game, this image of Lion's Arch with a bunch of airships in the sky. And now, in this release where Lion's Arch is going to be attacked and potentially destroyed forever, well, these airships, I don't think they're the same airships, because these are Aetherblade airships, and I believe in that original trailer they were like packed airships, but that's really cool to me. Like, that was something I always wanted to see in game, and if they really are going to do away with Lion's Arch, which for the record I will be discussing in a second, and it's not confirmed whether they are going to or they aren't, but if they really are going to, wouldn't that be a fitting end? Like, that's something I always wanted to see, and it's sort of, it's not exactly the same, but seeing that skyline of all the airships, if we're really going to get some big fight in there, and you get to look up and experience that, it makes me very, very, very happy. You know, a lot of this trailer that we saw, not just the airships, but the earlier shots where it's just, you know, lovey-dovey, Lion's Arch is in pristine condition, they remind me a lot of those earlier trailers when we very first ever saw it. In fact, some of them feel like they're shot-for-shot replicates. Alright, okay, so enough of that, let's get into the meat of this. What do you guys think about the idea of Lion's Arch being completely destroyed? Here's what we know. Previous patch, we heard that Scarlet was probably going to attack Lion's Arch. In fact, it was pretty much 100% guaranteed it was going to happen. You know, there was a chance maybe she didn't, but everything about that patch was screaming she's going to attack Lion's Arch, right? As of the last patch, it was still, to me, it could have been interpreted as this thing where it's like, oh yeah, she's going to attack Lion's Arch, it's just going to be an instance where we defend it, and then that's it, you know? A bit like, say, the Karka event. That's sort of the vibe I was getting from last patch. But now we see this trailer and everything is just destroyed so much. Are they really going to have us have this big instance where everything's been destroyed and looks completely different, and then we fight off Scarlet, and then everything goes back to normal again, and all of a sudden it's just repaired? Are they going to do that? Seriously? Or is this going to just result in, yes, maybe we managed to fight Scarlet off, but it is the ultimate destruction of the city and we don't get to go back there? This is a really, really compelling idea to me. I love the thought that Living World Season 1 ends with the destruction of this full city. The whole point of Living World wasn't to constantly have lots of small, frequent updates that get them a lot of money in the cash shop necessarily, but the idea was to have these permanent changes to the world, that the world actually evolves and adapts based on story stuff that's going on. You know, all these discussions about, oh, should it be temporary, shouldn't it be temporary? The whole point is there is meant to be permanent impacts, right? And so far in game, we've actually seen very little of this. We've seen some areas have had slight revamps, you know, bosses have been added here or there. We saw, as I just explained, that during the original attack in Lion's Arch, the Karka attack, that we had the lighthouse was destroyed and then slowly rebuilt. That's really cool as well, actually. Somebody mentioned to me in game that this whole arc of the Living World began with an attack on Lion's Arch with the Karka, and it's going to end with an attack on Lion's Arch. And again, that's another nice little way that they've ribboned everything up. But back to my point, we haven't really seen that much of Tyria be permanently changed, and this should be one of the biggest strengths of the Living World, and this is one of the things that I feel compelled the devs most to go with this option. So wouldn't it make sense, therefore, to make one of the biggest changes they could possibly make the center of most player activity, where everybody AFKs, where everybody knows that you can go to find other people, to just destroy it, to just remove it from the game? Wouldn't that be the strongest testament to the kind of thing Living World can do, besides, you know, actual expansion-based stuff like giving us new areas? Yes, I would miss Lion's Arch, and it would be a shame to not have this, you know, beautiful little city here anymore, but I think what we would gain from it would be massive. You know, there are pros and cons to both. I do just want to go over in my mind what the pros and cons are. First of all, if Lion's Arch was actually destroyed in this way and you could no longer go there were no longer any centralized services, this would force people, the general player population, to spread out to the other cities in the game. And I have always maintained that these are just as beautiful, just as cool as Lion's Arch currently is, except nobody ever goes there. Nobody goes to those places because they know that they'll find their community in Lion's Arch, that Lion's Arch is sort of equidistant from most areas of the map, perhaps, and those people who are really wary about their waypoints know that it's safe to go there. If you care about, say, the order bases, all the orders are located somewhere near Lion's Arch. Again, more incentive to go there. A lot of people will tell you that the reason why everybody goes to Lion's Arch is because all of the services are really centralized and close to one another. That's actually not true. If you think about like Divinity's Reach, trading post, bank, merchant, retrader, all of that stuff is really, really close, way closer to one another than you would ever find at Lion's Arch. The only things that are slightly further away are the crafting stations, but I don't know about you guys. For the majority of the game, all I'm doing at Lion's Arch is zigzagging between the bank and the trading posts. The other cities do have compelling reasons to go and hang out there, but nobody does. If they destroy Lion's Arch, what do you guys think will happen to the population? Do you think everyone will just pick sort of another city to go to, and then everyone will be there? Well, how does that city get determined? Is that city going to be like globally the accepted one across all servers? We might even get an interesting situation where everybody does flock to just one other city, but that city is different. You know, everyone on Blackgate thinks, okay, Divinity's Reach is the best, while everyone over on Jade Quarry is hanging out at the Black Citadel. And then you have like these server identities that actually mean slightly more than just, oh, this is the color we're currently in World versus World. I think it would be far more interesting, however, if all of the cities end up being sort of reasonably well populated. Now, there is a risk, here's a con, there is a risk that if they destroy Lion's Arch, this is going to spread out the player population too much, and then people will think that it's a dead game. I really don't think that that's going to happen, but then people think, oh, there's not enough players around, people can't find one another, and then slowly the game suffers for it. But there's also a very real opportunity here for players to think, right, there's no Lion's Arch, where do I want to go? Oh, hey, I'm playing a Char, I've always been a Char, I'll go to the Black Citadel. Hey, I'm playing in a Sylvari, then I'm going to hang out at the Grove. You get a bit more impact on race, and you're encouraging players to go to these maps that maybe they haven't seen since launch. Before even this idea that Lion's Arch might get completely destroyed, I always had these thoughts like, oh, maybe they should incentivize people to go to their home cities. You know, like if you go to the bank if you're a Sylvari and you go to the bank in the Grove, then you get an extra bank slot, and then that spreads people out a bit more. I've always wanted more people to hang out in those other places, and this could be just the thing that does it. I think another really strong pro of completely destroying Lion's Arch is it's the kind of thing you can tell your friends, right? You currently play Guild Wars 2, a lot of your friends don't. It's the kind of thing you can say, hey man, you remember that game Guild Wars 2 used to play? some actual crazy stuff has happened. Do you remember Lion's Arch? And they're like, oh yeah, I used to hang out in Lion's Arch all the time. That's just been destroyed. It's like completely gone now. It feels totally different playing the game. Because it really is. That's like a pretty core thing about Guild Wars 2, hanging out in Lion's Arch, as stupid as it sounds. It's like you're either participating in content or you're hanging out in Lion's Arch if you're a PvE player. That's like the way it goes. And that's just been completely changed now. I think it's the kind of thing you can tell your friends. Not everyone's going to be totally excited by it, but they will sit up and say, oh, really? Yeah, maybe I should give that a look. And, you know, it's like, oh, yeah, this Scarlet chick just destroyed it. I really want her dead. And the next patch, because after this next patch, obviously, we're going to the finale. Everyone can be like, yeah, Lion's Arch just got destroyed. We all hate Scarlet. Yeah, the next patch, we're gonna take the fight to her or whatever arena have planned, right? That would be really, really cool. It's the kind of thing that people do get talking about. Another big pro, in my opinion, for destroying Lion's Arch completely is what happens to that region of the world once it's been destroyed. For clarification, what I mean by destroy Lion's Arch completely, functionally speaking, would mean take all of the services out of here. There's no longer a bank there. There's no longer a Mystic Forge there. That's an interesting topic as well, by the way. That's probably one of the big reasons why people go to Lion's Arch, because of the Mystic Forge. Add Mystic Forges to the other cities, if you will, to remedy that situation. And hey, maybe we can get some cool lore there about other Jinn that go to the other Mystic Forges, and, you know, there's a little bit of actual lore going on. That could be pretty interesting. But what I'm saying, functionally, is get rid of all of those services. So the area is still available and is a part of the world, and you can explore in its new state, its new ruined state, but it's not the kind of place you would go as a city. It would be a ruin. It would be akin to the ruins of old Lion's Arch underwater now, except obviously above ground. And by doing this, my suggestion would be you still allow people to play in the Lion's Arch area, but now it's a regular map of the world. Now it's like Gendaron Fields to the north or Bloodtide Coast to the south. It's its own place. There could be roaming mobs around there. Maybe these stragglers from Scarlet's Alliance that are still hanging about. Maybe just regular wildlife that starts creeping in. And as the living world continues, you see like the fires and embers burn down, and slowly it becomes more and more base. In a weird way, it's like they would have added another map to Guild Wars 2. A map I would then also say, hey, put world completion in it as well, but maybe that's a completely different discussion. That, again, that's a huge benefit to me. It's sort of like giving us more stuff, different stuff, while encouraging us to go to all these other places we haven't bothered with for so long. So, what about the cons? I've just spent so long talking about the pros. I really don't have that many cons. You know, I've already mentioned it could spread the player base too thin. A lot of servers, I don't know how bad server population really is. I wish ArenaNet would stop labeling every single friggin' NA server as very high population when they're clearly not all very high. I am curious whether that would be a bad move, spreading the player base too thin, but I think that's a risk that should be taken. Another con is potentially, I just mentioned to you guys, hey, they could add this as like an explorable map or whatever. But, you know, if they do keep the services in Lion's Arch, yet it's destroyed, this is actually an opportunity for them to redesign Lion's Arch with all of its services and its function basically the same. All players are going to be there all the time, but instead it has a bit of a redesign. You know, this would be an opportunity to redesign it in that sense, but to me, a complete obliteration and adding a new explorable map would be cooler than just redesigning it very slightly, so the trading post looks slightly different or is a little bit further away. Another con perhaps could be you don't really want to alienate people too much. Maybe there are some people who are only playing Guild Wars 2 because they like Lion's Arch that much, or they've become very familiar to it. But, you know, what kind of demographic are we really targeting here? What percentage of Guild Wars 2's audience really care that much about it? So from my opinion, looking objectively at ArenaNet's options, whether they do want to completely remove this or not, I think if they think anywhere along the same lines as me, that may be the decision that they end up coming to. Lion's Arch could be completely destroyed. Another pro to it as well that I've just thought of is if you destroy Lion's Arch, it proves to the player base that the living world actually has consequence. I've talked about this a few times with regard to player deaths. You know, a lot of stuff can happen in the living world, but if you never feel like there's any risk, like you can't lose characters that you're with or even places like this, then why should people care about it? If we have this big attack from Scarlet on Lion's Arch and we have this trailer and I'm talking about it to you guys right now and there's all the fire everywhere, and then we just do it, and then Lion's Arch is back to normal next patch. Like, how lame is that going to be? Nobody's ever going to take the living world seriously if they do that. But if this has serious permanent consequence on the way that we play the game, people are going to set up a bit more, especially with, you know, the reveals that are to come and what's happening with Season 2 of the living world. People are actually going to feel like stuff is at stake, potentially more at stake than they felt when they were completing, say, the personal story at launch, which was, you know, all high stakes, look, we're fighting Zaitan, blah, blah, blah. But really, you know, it's always just happening in small instances instances and the personal story can never really interact with the real world, the living world is like no holds barred. They destroy Lion's Arch, whatever's coming up in the future, people are like, whoa, we might lose anything else, and actually care. So yeah, I think everything laid out. I'm really looking forward to this patch itself with whatever fight's going to happen there. And then for the future, I really hope that sort of you can sum up the Living World Season 1 with, this was the story of Scarlet Briar and how Lion's Arch was destroyed. And then you can be like, Season 2 was X, Y, and Z. And then Season... You know, in retrospect, I'd love it if that was the way people summed up what happened here. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the Lion's Arch stuff. I think I've talked about it for way too long. One final thing, I might do a video on Lion's Arch doing like a bit of a tour, talking about lore of it or something just before it all gets destroyed. And on that note, do bear in mind, guys, the wiki for the first game was like awesome. I don't think it's so good. A lot of people say, oh, you know, there's not enough wiki contributors and stuff for Guild Wars 2. And I'm a hypocrite for telling you guys to do it when I don't do it myself. I've never contributed to the wiki. However, since we are going to completely lose Lion's Arch, I have seen a lot of people saying, man, you know, there's a lot of details, there's a lot of character conversations, a lot of small quirks and things about that huge town that could potentially be lost forever after this patch. So if you are interested in preserving that so that in the years to follow people can always know about, you know, like Josh Foreman's golden coins that were placed, stuff like that, then now is your opportunity before the patch goes live to, you know, really create a nice library of information on Lion's Arch before we can't anymore. Alright, so as for other news, since I've talked so long about it, I'm going to sort of skip through this. There were new gem store items that were added, so because of Valentine's Day, there have been some new things. I believe the bouquet of roses from last year is back. I haven't bought it myself, I kind of want it for my warrior, but it is back, I believe, and they've added some new stuff as well. There's a new instrument that you can play, which is a harp, and there was a video of a guy like playing, I think, a Lord of the Rings song on the harp, like really, really well. And then they've added a new costume brawl item. I feel like they need to add some more costume brawl achievements or something. Like, I haven't cared about that for too long. But there's a new costume brawl weapon, the box of chocolates, and you can like throw sweet wrappers and stuff all over the place. And also, I don't know why, and I find it curious that they've done this, the set 1 of minis. So for people that weren't aware, in the first year of Guild Wars 2, there was a set of minis you could originally buy, and then they were taken away, and now there's like a new set of minis. For just this week, I believe, this week only, you can buy the set 1 minis again, so you can catch up on your collection if you missed out on that stuff. But then I sort of feel like they shouldn't do that. Doesn't it sort of ruin the integrity of those people that got their collections at the time? How can their collections, you know, continue to accrue value and gain if ArenaNet adds the original ones back into the gem store every now and then? But whatever, they did that. That's what's going on with the gem store. Other big news, I'm sorry that this is going to be so short in the video because for World vs. World exclusive players, this is going to be huge. Season 2, or which I say in quotes now, of World vs. World is going to be coming very soon, but it's no longer going to be called Season 2. It's going to be a tournament, and that's because they're shifting away from the league format, which they did last time, to much more of a, I believe they call it a Swiss tournament format. In their words, exactly here, you can find a link in the description to a blog post about it if you guys like, but here I'm just going to pull a bit of text from it. They said, one of the major changes we've made to the format of the World vs. World tournament was to move it from a concept similar to a sporting league to one more like a tournament. We are introducing a new Swiss-style system of matching up the worlds within a league. This means that over the course of 7 weeks, the matchups will be much more competitive as the winners fight each other for first place, while other worlds with similar records battle it out. Okay, and in addition to this is probably the more exciting thing to a lot of people. They're changing the rewards. I feel like there's something wrong with the fact that they constantly have to go on about rewards to get people excited about stuff. But here you go, the rewards are changing in a big way. Last season, it took a really, really long time to complete the meta and nobody was happy with what they got out of it, if you guys remember. Well now, last time you got a key for completing the meta. This time you get tickets for completing the meta. And depending on how well your server did, depends on how many tickets you get. The tickets can be traded at a new vendor that will be added for specific rewards, and that includes like ascended mats like Dragonite ore and whatever, but also you can get ascended accessories, obsidian shards, a couple of examples they gave, and also there's going to be 2 entirely new weapon skin sets that you can't get in any other way, exclusive to that World vs. World thing. So there will be new exclusive weapons. If you do really well, you'll be able to get a few of them. They could be quite expensive with the tickets, but we don't know. So that's how they're doing the new rewards. I do think that system looks a lot better. As for the achievements themselves to complete the meta, they're going to be much easier now. Apparently they thought there was too much effort last time for the meta, which I sort of disagree with, but maybe I played this game way too much. The achievements will be easier to get. And also, every single achievement, in addition to being easier to get, will also give you an item. Like, you guys remember last meta, some of the achievements would give you, like, a box early or something. Well, apparently, every single one will give you an item this time, and as well as the achievement points. So, like, they're really bringing in the reward so that people feel like their time is worthwhile. And another key thing that they've done is you can get every single achievement for that meta exclusively in the Edge of the Mists. So let's imagine a disaster scenario where your server is 100% Q-locked the entire time and you can never get into the regular maps. Well, that's fine. You can still get your meta. You can do the entire thing in the Edge of the Mists, which I think is quite smart. One final thing that they've changed is the way that the game detects which server you're on. Okay, so last time, the reward you got out of your chest at the end depended on how well your server did, okay? And the way that the game detected what server you belonged to was what server you were on when the season began. So I started on Emery Bay, okay? If I guessed it after the season began to Blackgate because I wanted the first place rewards, I still would have only got the Emery Bay rewards because that's where I was when it all started. They've changed the way that the game detects which world you're associated with now, and instead it's like wherever you've contributed most. So this time I can start on Emery Bay, do no world versus world at all, guess to Blackgate, do loads of world versus world, and the game will actually realise, oh hey, this guy's been playing for Blackgate the entire time. Here, you are associated with this world. And because that's potentially a little bit vague for people and you might not always know what the game thinks you're associated with, they're adding an NPC you can speak to who says, hey, you are associated with this world, or you are associated with this world. So that seems really nice, and it's more quality of life. Like, I think that's pretty much everything people bitched about last time they have addressed in some way. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's it for the World vs. World news. One final little thing as well. The NCSoft earnings report came through. I've always mentioned this on news videos whenever it's happened. Apparently, Guild Wars 2 exceeded expectations for Q4, and this is a quote that I give you now. No decision has been made for Guild Wars 2 expansion. For now, the focus is the Living World update and bringing Guild Wars 2 to China. They will update when they have more visibility on the issue of an expansion. Same old story. They don't know what they're doing. I think that decision should have been made a long time ago, and I stand by that. But they still seem to be focused 100% on Living World for now. That doesn't mean there will never be an expansion for Guild Wars 2. It just means that the news is there's no news. That's about it though, guys, for the news video. Thank you very much for watching. Do keep an eye on the channel. I'll probably do a Q&A in the coming days. And as I say, I kind of want to talk about Lions Arch a bit, you know, do a bit of a tour, talk about the lore of the area before perhaps it gets obliterated, never to return. Anyway, let me know what you think about the new patch. There's certainly a lot to talk about. I hope you have a great day, guys, and I will see you next time.